Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you will enjoy listening to. If you're interested in creating more balance in your life, understanding your 5-element energetic nature, finding the path of greatest ease,
or releasing the baggage of this lifetime and discovering ancient alchemy that can help you fly in your life, join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical transformational journey.
Hi, and welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is episode number 9. I'm Jane. I'm here with my co-host, Lena Herman.
Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers.
Is that like welcome back, Mouseketeers?
Except they don't have to wear the little ear hats.
No, they can wear their headphones.
Their
headphones can be the earphones, yes. We hope you are having an inspired day. But before we start on this episode, let's briefly talk about the last episode, number 8. And the meditation about letting go.
Yes, not the last episode.
No, not the previous episode. Thank you. Thank you. We hope by now you've downloaded it from the website. We had it in the show notes, and that was inspiredactionpodcast.com.
Make sure you put the podcast in to get to our website.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people say, we can't find it, but it's Inspired Action Podcast. So you have the meditation downloaded, and hopefully by now you've done your new habit of letting go, the meditation.
Yes, every night. I really enjoyed recording that meditation because it felt like something that people can really just do easily. They can incorporate that into their day. And, having a guided meditation is useful a lot of the time. And then if you get used to it, you can just do it on your own in bed. Yeah,
and it does get easier as it goes. And, someday, we're going to have an app that allow people to download the meditations that we have. We're going to be creating new ones all the time so that you can listen to the show, get the show notes, download the app all on your phone like magic.
Yeah, like magic. And you can use your iPhone or an Android. So
yes.
We're really excited about that, and we'll keep you posted.
Yes, we'll keep you, as like I said, someday. It's in the works. That's all we can say. All right, so let's move on. So episode number 9, this is about your heart's desire.
And Jay, did you know the number 9 in Chinese numerology represents the 9 wormholes?
Well, Lita, I did know that. But actually, there might be some people out there who are listening who didn't know that. So, Lita, please tell us about what those things are wormholes are called or about.
Well, the 9 wormholes are no laughing matter, actually. They're supposed to be the way that you can get to a faster track to evolutionary process. Like basically the 7 deadly sins are similar to the 9 wormholes. It's basically by going through the worst nightmarish stuff of your life, you emerge out into the sun and everything's wonderful.
So you go from bad to good.
Yeah. So it's a fast track, just like, sci-fi wormholes.
Yes, we love the sci-fi references that I was thinking about. Like in Harry Potter, they have the port keys. They touch one thing and shoo, they go into another. So for me, I think a wormhole is like a tunnel between 2 different places.
Yeah. And so in this case, it's the 9 wormholes are on your back, and you're making a fast track to the front where you're basically reversing all of that negativity, like the 7 deadly sins. It's kind of like that, like greed and avarice and all those, nasty.
So those are points?
Things. Yeah. There's 9 points on the back.
That's really cool.
And so number 9 is this episode. So I was thinking, when we're talking about your heart's desire, a lot of times we get into kind of wormhole stuff because we get really greedy, or we get a lot of heart pain that's causing a lot of these negative emotions. And so we're going to talk about a few things like that today. And sort of, it's a great number.
So in episode 7, we talked about how when you ask that question, what do you truly want in your life? And then episode 8, we did the letting go meditation. So after you ask the question and then you start to learn to let go, then what? So now we're on episode 9, and this is about your heart's desire. So what do you do now?
That's what you're listening to this podcast for.
Yeah. So first thing you do is listen to the podcast. Yes. But okay, once you pass that, then what?
So the next step in alchemy is to sit with what you really want. Think about it. See how it feels.
Okay, so when you say that, like, what do you mean? Like, let's break that down a little.
Yeah, the thing you really want. So let's say you're in the middle of a midlife crisis or even you're 20 something, just graduating
Actually, we
from
call
college.
it midlife transition.
Yes.
Midlife transition.
Because it's not necessarily a crisis.
That's right.
It's a good thing.
But for today, we'll call it a crisis.
It's a transition.
Because some people, they don't have the transition. They really have the crisis.
Oh, yeah. Especially around in this country. But in China, they call it the transition. And what happens is everyone wants you to do one thing. And the answer to the question, what do I really want, is something entirely different.
Sure.
And so you have this conflict. So let's say, you're in your 50s or whatever, and you want to sell all your possessions and go vagabonding.
That could be at any age, but we'll just go with the 50.
I like to say that the 20-something crisis is similar to the midlife crisis because they graduate from college and they want to do one thing, and society and their families say, oh no, you should get a real good job and become an accountant.
Yes. Go do something. Yes.
Not to say accounting's bad, but
sorry, accountants.
But, or maybe you want to rent an RV and go around the country or buy a motorcycle, and your spouse is like, no way, I'm never going to let you ride that motorcycle.
But your heart's desire could be this motorcycle.
Yeah.
Okay. And go scoot to some more examples.
Well, I mean, some people want to go live in a monastery for a year and, leave their families behind. Or a lot of people get divorced around that time, or they decide to adopt a child. They've always wanted a child, and now it's like almost too late. So they adopt a child. Or, many people who thought they were artists, and we talked about this before with the Up in the Air movie, they can go back to their artistry later in life.
Because that was their heart's, their passion.
Their passion.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people come out, they've been gay all their lives, but didn't actually, live that way.
Okay.
Or, something simple. You always wanted to be an interior designer, and you are working in administration somewhere and feel very bored with your job.
Or start a podcast.
That's our midlife crisis.
Transition.
Oh, right. Transition.
Okay. So to me, it seems like these are all older people kind of things. I mean, I know you said that the 20-something and the 50-something, but
it's because when you put things off that you really, really want,
like big things,
for years and years and years, it's eventually going to catch up with you. And then the kids go off to college and you're sort of stuck with your life.
So that's like the empty nest syndrome.
The empty nest or retirement.
Retire from it. Well, I'll tell you my favorite joke. What's the best present to give someone for retirement?
What?
A divorce.
Oh my God. Okay, well, that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense.
How many people do get divorced? It's really common.
Yes. And that list that you said, it could go on and on and on. There's so many things that you could actually come up with that you maybe want to do that you're not doing.
But think about why people get divorced at that point. It's because the spouse might want them to continue doing their thing that they don't like.
Yes. Yes. Or the person has kind of buried it for so long and now they wanted to birth it, so to speak. And the other person's like, no way.
That wasn't what we planned.
That's right. We're going to stay the way it is right now. So yes. So, here's the deal. If you have a thing that you're thinking about and then I've been thinking about this for 20 years, but then if you don't have the will to carry through, and what do you do about that? If you just need some time, you need to think about that question. What do I truly want in my life, from episode 7?
Yes. So that is what this episode's about. You may have come up with a lot of good ideas about what you really want, but they're just ideas. And until you actually have the will to do it, you will not be able to go through with it.
Yeah.
And so how do you develop that will? You get all these wonderful ideas bubbling up in yourself as you ask yourself this question, like we talked about in episode 7. And then what?
Then what? That's the big question. So is this kind of like a bucket list thing? I read a lot of different people's bucket lists all the time, especially like travel ones. I like to look at people's travel, like the dream trip, the bucket list. How can we find a way to explain this, what your heart desire without making it sound like a pipe dream, like it's unachievable. It's like something that you're never going to happen to.
I love the bucket list idea because if there's something you want to do before you die, well, that's your heart's desire. And if you're not doing that, then, what if
there's 30 things on that heart's desire list?
Well, that's the thing. Okay, so now we're getting to the point. If you have 30 things on your list, wonderful. but they're just ideas.
Right. Are they dreams?
They're dreams.
Is the bucket list really like a dream list? So how do you kind of figure out which is the one or ones that you want to do?
Well, you have to sit and ask yourself and give yourself time. Does this great idea, this dream really truly resonate with me? Is it really me? Do I really want this? Am I really interested in this? Do I want to invest my time and energy in this idea? I mean, you may want to go to Australia or, wherever you're not from across the world
and hold a koala and,
maybe
just say,
that's what someone from the US might say, right? But maybe someone in Australia might want to come here and see the Grand Canyon. I don't know. But are you going to let yourself become so passionate about it that you will stop at nothing to get it done?
So you have to kind of think is what you're thinking about once you start to open up and get things in your mind, is it the one thing that you just keep thinking about over and over?
It has to really gel in your heart. So you could be obsessively thinking about it, but you're not actually creating the will to do it.
Yes, I think that's what kind of we see a lot in the world today. Okay, so, when you're asking what your heart's desires, that's like a pretty big thing. It's not like you're taking a lunch order from yourself. Like, do I want Caesar salad today or do I want a Cobb salad today?
Right.
Like, this is a bigger issue.
Yeah, you want to feel it within your soul. You want your heart to accept it, nourish it, and feed it.
And like you said, it has to kind of gel and sit with you. All right.
So we're talking about your passion. Do you feel the passion to do this thing? Not the movie, The Passion, by the way. Not that kind of passion.
That was not.
That was not about passion. Okay. So,
am I overthinking this? Am I trying to
well, actually, it's not so much thinking.
Okay.
So if you're overthinking it, then you need to just sit with it.
Maybe go with the Wu Wei, let it flow.
Yeah.
Let it go with the flow. Okay.
This is about your excitement, your drive, what comes from your heart, which is your passion. It's a desire that is greater than just like, oh, this is a good idea.
Yeah. And I heard you explain it when you say, when you feel it in your soul, you know that you're on the right path.
Yes. Okay. So you have to really want it, and it takes time. So there's this will help. There's a famous Chinese poem about how we do this in our lives. And so this is sort of the short part of it that pertains to this. And here it goes. When something takes charge of the beings, we speak of the heart. When the heart applies itself, we speak of intent. When intent becomes permanent, we speak of will. There's much more to the poem, but that's the part that's relevant for today, for this conversation.
That is so amazing. I need that on my wall during my coaching sessions, because that pretty much sums it up a lot of what I do with people when I'm working with them. And, not to be repetitive or anything, but can you kind of go over that again and kind of say it again?
That's a great idea. I'll just take it line by line and then I'll explain each line.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. When something takes charge of the beings, we speak of the heart. Now, this is about your spirit taking charge of you. And the reason that we speak of the heart is the house for the spirit. So your spirit lives in your heart.
Nice.
When the heart applies itself, we speak of intent. So remember, I said you need to give it a little time. It needs to begin to want to do something, to ask that question, what you really, really want. So then you get some intent. You get good ideas and you're excited about them. But here's the key. When intent becomes permanent, we speak of will. And that means you need enough time to pass for that intent to get very strong and permanent in you so that you will do it.
So the will is the willpower.
Yes, it's the willpower to go through and get whatever it is that needs to happen.
So you have to give your heart time to apply itself. You have to give it a little time. Like we said, almost like marinate and make sure it's the right one for you.
I love that word. Marinate.
Yeah,
yes,
marinate.
That is perfect.
Because if we acted on every good idea we had, we would just be all day doing crazy things all the time.
It would be impossible.
It would be impossible, yes.
Luckily, we don't do everything we think of. I mean, you have 1,000 good ideas a day, and I think I want to do all of them.
Yes,
but,
yes. But you honestly, you just just can't do them all. You have to see what inspires you, what the intent, all the things that you just said with that poem. That's a really great poem. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. But, does this idea really matter? Do you feel the excitement? It's that spark from your heart that leads you down the path of discovery.
Yeah, that's a good one too. The spark from the heart. So you'll know if you keep doing this work and doing your homework and working on your self-cultivation, you might get that. And then your heart will take that on and you will fulfill it.
Yes.
You will work in that direction, but you have to fulfill it. You'll be so motivated and so inspired. You'll stop at nothing. Yeah, you stop at nothing. So
the heart wants what the heart wants.
Yes. And also the heart has a mind of its own.
It does.
How's about that? Yes. Okay, great. So, Lita, why isn't everyone just doing this? Why is it not? So why is it easy for some people and really hard for others?
It's really true. I mean, honestly, it is easy for some people. And then there are others who super duper struggle. And so the common reason for this kind of struggle is that people have heart pain. And that heart pain can sometimes be so big, it blocks their ability to access the heart.
Yeah. So is it blocking their drive?
Yeah, it blocks that feeling of excitement, that feeling of passion, the drive that can will you to get it done. And so your heart may have been hurt. And in some cases, a heart is so hurt that I say it's like the person has wrapped their heart in cellophane, a barrier where, people can see in and you can see out, but there's really no accessibility through that cellophane wrapper.
So I know when I work with people, and you've kind of taught me this too, to ask, are you accessible to yourself? Do you feel like you have access to your own heart?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and you feel everything is damped down and you feel dispassionate, this is probably because of that heart. Essentially, the heart block is what protects you because things were so bad, you needed that protection.
Yeah. It makes sense. So if you think you have a heart block or that you know that you have a heart block, you have to take the time to work on releasing your heart's pain. There's several ways to do it. I'm going to have Lita talk about a couple of them right now.
Yes, because in Chinese medicine, we see people with simple heart blocks that are temporary problems, like literally something's just a little off for today. But these are big blocks. I call them systemic heart blocks because your whole system is affected. It's a long-term entrenched problem. And so the systemic heart block is more significant, and I think it really requires outside help, meaning maybe a practitioner like myself or somebody in a related field like medical qigong or anything where they can work on this. And we have all experienced heart pain, but a heart that is still full of pain can be blocking you from your higher self. So of course, it'd be difficult to complete the first step in alchemy if you have this heart block.
Well, I'm listening to you talk about this, and it makes me think of the 13 ghost point treatments. And, I think this is exactly where they would come into play, and they're fascinating. So again, not to veer off too far, but let's talk a little bit about those treatments. And isn't that really where this would come into play?
Yes. So there's two ways to look at this. Sometimes heart pain creates what we call a haunting of your own mind. You're obsessively thinking about something. And the reason they're called the ghost points, it's not like Casper the friendly ghost floating around, or not friendly ghost in this case. It is literally your own mind that is haunting yourself because you had trauma, maybe PTSD or whatever. And those are the 13 ghost points. So those are also important for doing alchemy. You want to clear all the skeletons from your closet.
That's a good way of saying it. Yes. Okay. So I get that. So talk a little bit about, we talked about this the other day, so it's still fresh in my mind, but talk about the systemic heart block and what the IDs are.
Yeah. So the systemic, what I call removing a systemic heart block is also called internal dragons by some other practitioners of Chinese medicine, just in case you are looking for someone to help you out with that. And that treatment is also very helpful for clearing that heart pain. And then there's another one too that not many people do in terms of Chinese medicine, but I like to call it the loving yourself treatment. And it's particularly useful for people with addictions.
Wow, that sounds awesome. And maybe we'll talk about that later in more in depth as we do move through this. So if you have heart pain, and you need to spend the time to work on what you have to do to release it, These are alchemical treatments. There are people who do them all the time. You can do them on your own, correct?
Well, some of them. But really, the worst one, the systemic heart block, there is a theory. I've met people who've done it on their own, but it's kind of like the wormhole.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really rough. It's a dark night of the soul kind of adventure. But if you're working on releasing your own heart pain, just be clear that it's going to take time, sometimes up to a year or more. And you can really let go of these heart pains one by one. And the point is that you begin to love yourself when you do that. And this self-love can be renewed from your past or be developed for the first time in your life, like if you've never had self-love. So the question is, as you embark on this journey, can you forgive yourself or those who have hurt you? Can you rectify your past? That's a really popular word in Chinese medicine. Can you let go of things you have done or have been done to you?
And letting go, again, with the meditation, it's all kind of connected here. You can see you connecting the dots. And then further along, when we start talking about stage 2 of alchemy, we'll be talking more about loving yourself on even a deeper level. Initially in alchemy, you need to resolve these questions for yourself. You can kind of see what dropping breadcrumbs here.
Yes. And it is really important. Like if we're going to progress onto stage 2 and you aren't really able to do the loving yourself work, then again, you have to look at those heart pains.
And maybe you could put some of these treatments in the show notes, Lita, so people can get some resources.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And you have a lot of good resources on litaherman.com that really talk about these treatments in more depth. So,
and there is a website called the 13ghostpoints.com. That is also one that I run. So
if you're listening to this and you're nodding your head and you're really thinking about, this could be a block for you, this could be a big challenge for you, those are some resources that we'll put in the show notes at inspiredactionpodcast.com.
Great.
So at this time, it's that time in the podcast.
Homework time?
Yes. Does any of the podcast give homework to people to do? I'm not really sure.
I know. It's kind of
are we making this too hard for people, or do people really like to do these tasks?
So far, people have been saying they've been enjoying the homework. So.
I think so too. So, all right, we'll keep up going with it because this is really about you working. You don't have to do this homework, but this is for ways for you to work on yourself.
Yes.
So, all right. So, we're going to continue with your journals, and you're going to be talking with yourself or having a little internal dialogue with yourself about contemplating and letting things gel in your heart. So, I would like you to write a paragraph, and we kind of call it this like the perfect dream, the perfect scenario. So you could
call it an ideal scene.
Ideal scene. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So in every day to look at it. So I always like to say, dream big, meditate on it, add it to your affirmations. If things are starting to gel, if things are starting that you're really asking yourself these questions and you're starting to get some traction in this area, you need to do some journaling.
Yeah. And the important thing is you write these things down and then you sit with them and think about them. So I think the writing process is really helpful, at least for me, Jay. It's like really helpful. I don't know why writing it down and then reviewing that is better than just doing it in my mind all the time. It's almost like you commit to something.
Yeah. And I think for me, writing it down, if I feel like in a few weeks or a few months, or even I've looked at some notes from a year or two ago, and you're like, wow, I was stuck there and I got out of it, or I'm still wrestling with the same kind of heart pains. So yeah, so the journaling, I agree, is very helpful. So that's about what we're going to do today. The next episode, we're going to talk about some complications that can arise as soon as your heart gets invested in your really cool new idea and your new life, or whatever you are finding is what you want to do.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much about the next one. I want you guys just to
be in the moment,
being with this gelling in your heart, this contemplation.
Remember, it's about your heart's desire and
your intent becoming permanent.
Yes, and you're still working on the letting go. So episode 8 is out. If you need to re-listen to that, that'd be great. And also download the meditation that's part of episode 8. Practice it every day. At the end of the day, I know I sound like a broken record, but it does get easier. It's 20 minutes. I would say do it for the 20 minutes for a while and see how that goes for you for letting go.
Right. And just to remember, if you don't have the meditation yet, go to inspiredactionpodcast.com, episode 8, and there's a download button there.
So download it if you want it. All right. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast. You can follow our Inspired Actions on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. If you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews and really appreciate your input. Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to hug the dog.